Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Okay, Alex, who are you?
I'm Alex Crow. I play drums in the band Talleen.
And you're a dad.
I'm a dad of two awesome little Spitfires. Yes.
Spitfires. Do you care to share the name and age of your kids?
Matthias is 6 and Clara just turned 3.
So as you know, you're on the Rad Dad show. So we always start off with this same question. Do you consider yourself a rad dad?
I am absolutely a rad dad.
Elaborate. I love that the confidence in that answer.
I try to be very involved in my kids' lives, and I try to involve them in mine as well. They both enjoy coming here to the studio where we're recording this right now, and I bought them a drum set, and they play with all the guitars and love to switch on all the lights and knobs, and everything that's interactive for them is really great. So I think that's part of my radness with them, something that they wouldn't expect at anybody else's house. I've even had my son Matthias ask me, I went to a friend's house and they didn't have a music studio in their home. And I was like, yeah, well, Maddie, that's not, something that everybody has. This is something that only your rad dad would have.
How did that make you feel when you said, like, was that like a proud moment, or it was just?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I like to think that I'm able to give something to my children that not everybody has contact with. Music is a powerful, beautiful thing. And even if I'm not saying they have to make their life of it the way that I have, but if it's something they have in them, carrying them through their lives in good and bad moments, I think that's a tremendous gift. One that my father gave to me as well. My father was a musician, and so I fell into the soup pretty early on, and that's a gift I want to propagate. Something that I want to leave them.
I like that, and that's kind of like why we do what we do with Rad Dads, and now the Rad Dad shows that we heavily, kind of lean on musical guests. So it's not just music that musical guests that we interview, but we tend to do that more because of my interest in music, and like you said, a good friend of mine has a recording studio in his basement, and I've brought my son there. We've recorded stuff, and just to have that opportunity, I think is awesome for any kid. Like you've already kind of mentioned that. So yeah, to have those opportunities and have that experience, not something everyone gets, for sure. So are you conscious about that? Like, is that something? There's always like a fine line, right? Of like putting our interests on our kids, but also you want to introduce them to lots of kind of different things. How do you kind of navigate that, being a
dad? Yeah, I mean, I'm not too pushy about the music part of things. I mean, they're quite young still as well, 6 and 3, and so. But I've definitely not pushed it on them. It's been sort of their own path, from either me playing guitar at home, and then them interacting with me while I'm doing that, or playing for them when they were really small, or even when they were still in their mother's tummy. Then it's a kind of thing that I just let it flow for them. I never push them to play violin or learn piano or do anything right away. It's sort of, my son Matt is very much into sports and soccer and hockey. Like, that's his thing right now. And he even dressed up as Gallagher for Halloween this year, and incorporated the bloody gash on his forehead that Gallagher received this season. So I don't really push the music on them. They kind of gravitate to it on their own fruition and time. I mean, they come down when they're with me, where my wife and I our ex-wife and I are separated, and when they're with me, they ask to come down to the studio and set up the drum set for them. And Matt, he starts these bands now. Okay, Dad, we're going to start a band, and he thinks of a name, and even like names our record and all this stuff, and just does it on his own, not something that I've pushed on him necessarily.
Nice. You kind of talked a little bit about your dad influencing you and getting you involved in music. Can you talk about the relationship with your dad and how that?
Well, I bet
That'd be
my
good to hear.
dad was sort of I guess, a weekend warrior where he would, play bars with his friends or on his own, on the weekends to, I guess, have some extra cash, or just because it was part of who he was as well. He's always wanted to be a musician, but didn't necessarily make a career of it. And so there were always instruments at home, and, you know, um, whatever band he had formed that month or whatnot would come to rehearse at home. And so there was always a lot of music at home. We listened to a lot of music and always had a turntable and records lying around. But my dad was a little more pushy with the music in a way where, you really felt that he had high hopes for me to become this international rock star, and sort of instigated that at a young age. But when I was a small child, I would still build my pedal boards with like the cash register and plug an old cable into it and plug it into my plastic guitar. Like I think I forged my own path there as well, but
Just with a little bit of influence, eh?
a little bit more of a push. Yeah, that's right.
Did he kind of influence your parenting style?
I guess to some extent, yeah, that's a good question right there. I'm not sure how much I've taken from that. I think we do things without knowing that we're sort of that are innate, or that have, are out of experience. And but I think in general, yeah, of just wanting my children to be happy and fulfilled, and that being the general sentiment. I think, yeah, I think in that parenting style I have taken from my dad. As much as he pushed me towards music, it was, if I had chosen to do anything else, he would have been just as supportive. I'm certain of that. Same thing for my mother. They were both very supportive of what I did, and saw that I had a talent. And so as long as I was interested and was motivated, then they were they were keen on doing the same, on helping me out and encouraging that. I feel the same way with my kids, where whatever it is they choose to do, whatever their path is, I will encourage that wholeheartedly, and be behind them 1,000%.
Right. And so we would kind of consider some of those rad dad traits, being a supportive parent. Are there other traits out there that you think make one a rad dad?
Well, I think a lot of flexibility and patience is what make rad dads. Um, it takes a lot of organization as well, especially being freelance musician and having children. There's a lot to coordinate there, and there's a lot of sacrifices to make, and concessions, and sometimes you don't have a choice. You miss a birthday, and you're on the road, or you're playing an important show, and you can't make that choice. It's sort of made for you, and that's a lot to deal with, emotionally, and also for them, to not necessarily have us there at every important moment. I do my best to be around. I when our son was born, I decided to slow down the touring, and to sort of push things more into mixing and production and doing that kind of thing. But it's a hard it's a hard bug to squash. No matter what happens, you kind of end up in a new project, and next thing you know, you don't have a choice. You've got to tour. It's just the way it is. People want to see you play. People want to know what the band is about, and you have to have that interaction. It's important for fans to be able to experience the band that way, to see that we're not just using all the trickery of studio work and whatever else, and that we can actually perform the songs the way that they're meant to, and that the energy is there, and that there is a show to be presented, that we're not just, four guys in black t-shirts standing in a row playing our songs, that there's a performance there, that there's more drama to it than that.
Right. How do you deal with being away then? Like, are there some things that you do, or is it easier now with the technology that we have, do you think? Or
I was going to say, I mean, just having face-to-face interactions that aren't just over the phone. Again, my kids being really young, it's hard to keep their attention for a long time in that kind of circumstance. So that helps definitely, but it's just as hard to not be there physically, not being able to, hold them or put them to bed and do that kind of thing. As much fun as it is not to sometimes, because that can be a hectic time in the day, trying to get everybody wrangled and in the bath and into bed and reading
Yeah,
stories.
I get that. So are there any other members of the band that are dads as well, or is it just you?
No, it's just me. Yeah.
So like, how has that influenced, so some of the other people that we've interviewed, a number of members that have kids, and so they kind of get that, right? And so people that tend not to have kids don't really get it. You can, as much as you can say, you got this and this and this, they really haven't had that experience. So has that been a tough transition, or the guys that you're with understanding and about that whole situation, you being a dad?
I've been really lucky with these guys. They've been super understanding of my situation, and I'm sure there's some huffing and puffing after our meetings or whatnot of like, oh God, this guy again, with the kids. But it hasn't hindered any of our endeavors or anything like that. And even though I may have to make them wait for certain things like mixes, or when we can rehearse, or when we can do certain things, but they've been really patient, and I think that it's what makes me able to stay in a group like this, is that kind of consideration is there.
I sound like good bandmates. In what ways has fatherhood changed you, or has it?
Yeah, of course. I think we all go through sort of a adaptation period when we first have children, and especially when the second one came along, the work doubles up, and so it makes things a little more complex. But I think it's made me a little more calm, and I think have just a little bit more perspective on what's really important for me. It's kind of easy when we're in bands and playing shows and out in bars all the time to sort of have a good time and see that as our life. But I think once children come into the mix, you sort of see that there is a bigger picture, and there's things that are just as fulfilling, if not more, and are filled with things that are more not tangible, but that just feel a lot more real when children are in your life. It's a hard balance because the two worlds collide in a very different way. Everything happens late at night when it's bands or shows or after parties, and that's where all these connections happen and things happen, or people discuss, oh, we should meet up next week and jam together or do such thing, and that other bands intermingle and say, okay, let's do a split together, or things like these things happen at 4 a.m. And so you kind of have to split your life into in some ways. And well, I mean, now being separated, it makes it a little bit easier, because the nights that the children aren't here, I'm able to have that sort of interaction and keep those connections alive. And then when they're here, well, I turn into Rad Dad, making dinner, cleaning up, and making puzzles and art and doing stuff together, making the most of our time, because I really enjoy having them here with me, and I think it's important to keep those connections really strong. And I love it when they come to see us play. They haven't seen Talleen play yet, but I've been a professional musician for many years, and they've been to shows that I've played and stuff, bigger festivals, things that are maybe earlier in the day that they can be at, and they enjoy it so much. I mean, they get a real kick out of seeing me on a stage and seeing people react and applaud and all of that kind of thing, and the volume and all of that stuff, the lights. Yeah.
I understand that separation piece. So I have a son, he's turning 10, and yeah, my ex and I are split, and so we kind of do it week on, week off. And so I kind of get that, not that I'm a musician or anything, but I do enjoy, the music scene. A lot of my friends are musicians, and going out, late in the evening, and sometimes it's hard to got to be up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. for hockey practice because I'm the coach. So I get that. How do you you kind of talked earlier in one of the questions about being away and face-to-face interactions with your kids and stuff, but how do you take time for yourself? Like what do you do? Is that your time then when you don't have your kids? You kind of
Yeah, I have to say lately it's been hard to find time for myself. I've been quite busy with mixes and recording and things like that. And some of that being Talleen. We have some new recordings that we did in the last month that are just done mixing this week that we're going to try to release in the next couple of months. We might be shooting a video for one of them. But yeah, when I find time for myself, it's pretty basic, just as anyone else would. I try to get outside a little bit, try to go to the park, try to do some things like that, or even just chill and read or watch some TV and take it easy. My life is very full of noise and music and things like that. So when I do have time to myself, I try to do something quiet or listen to music that I appreciate and that will inspire the moment or guide me through whatever's going on that day.
Did you have any fears about being a dad?
I mean, yeah, some being an independent musician, salary and whatnot fluctuates quite a bit, and we all know children cost money, and also just knowing what my schedule is like and how much it changes and how much it's important for children to have a routine and something that is the same, which my life has never really been routine ever. And so trying to blend those two I had some apprehensions about that, about trying to find a way to do both of those things. Um, I've chosen to make a career out of music and make it my life. And sometimes finding that balance was difficult and scary, that nobody wants to feel trapped or scared and be like, what has become my life? No one wants to feel that way. So trying to keep that balance has been hard work, but it's paying off. And I'm finally finding footing where I'm comfortable, like there's enough road work, the pandemic putting a big dent in that in the last, year and a half or so, uh, things coming to a full stop for a long time. That was pretty scary as well, but all in all, I'm so glad that we chose to do that in the time that we did, and that these children are here now, and that I'm at the stage where I am in my career where I can balance those kinds of things, and I can maybe say no to certain things because I know I have stuff with the kids, or vice versa, that when I don't have them, I know I can say, okay, yeah, I can totally do that recording or gig or tour or whatnot, because I'm free from that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, the last year and a half for musicians and people in that industry, for sure. Like I mentioned, I have a number of friends who play in bands, and a number of friends that in Edmonton own, venues and stuff. And it just, I couldn't imagine. I would be freaking out. So all the power to you. I'm glad you've navigated that in a way.
It's mostly trying to find a time to sleep. You just end up having to split it up. It's like, okay, I'll sleep 3 hours here, and then I'll sleep another 4 over there, and then try to figure it out that way, because there's just no other way of doing it, really.
Is that something you figured out like on your own, or do you have like a dad mentor, or someone that you could say, how do you do this? And
No, it's all just it's trial and error. Just kind of like it is with writing or doing anything else. It's just finding something that works for you, really. And as strange as that may be, it's there's no wrong idea, I guess, in that respect. I mean, it's not something everybody has to do. Most people have a very steady schedule, something that is daily and sort of 9 to 5 ish and whatnot, and that's not the case for me. And so if I want to keep doing what it is that I do, I may live 15 years less, but at least I'll have been happy doing it.
yeah. um, what are the most rewarding aspects of being a dad? You've mentioned a few of them, but is there something that kind of sticks out that?
Mm-hmm. I think when we see our kids figure certain things out on their own, or have a reaction to something that we find prideful or that we see in ourselves, I think those are really rewarding moments, or things that we've tried to instill in them, when it's something respectful or empathy, or when we see our children do that on their own, or being very polite, or any of that, I think those are those moments that are, very rewarding to me.
Is there one that sticks out? Do you have like a proud dad moment?
I mean, there are so many, but nothing that really stands out. Nothing recently, at least, that does. But yeah, my son is quite empathetic. When other people get hurt, or he hears someone crying or whatnot, he will want to gravitate towards that person and help them. Really, yeah.
Is that something you teach your kids,
I
or
think
is
we
it just
teach our
like a
kids
role
with
model?
example, and so one example of this does come to mind where I was walking with the children. We were going to buy books or something, and someone was begging for money on the corner, and I had some change in my pocket, and I gave it to them, and they asked what that was all about. Why are they on the street? Why are they? They were in sleeping bags and whatnot. Why do they live out on the street? And so we had that whole discussion about how some people go through troubles in their lives and they don't have a home, and it can be temporary or it can be forever, and whenever we have a little bit more of something, or that we're able to help, it's important to try and do that. We should be grateful for the things that we have, and try to help out others if we're able to.
Definitely good lessons, that you can, give to our kids. I've had those conversations for sure. Yeah, let's shift to Talleen and where you're at with that. And actually, I wanted to ask one: are you involved with the writing of lyrics and stuff with Talleen?
No, actually, Alex Peterson does all of his own lyric writing. Um, I I produce and mix all of the songs for the band, and we do some arranging, a lot of arranging in the space. As we're rehearsing the songs and we're building them, finding correct tempos, finding changes, different guitar parts, things like that. I'm sort of involved in a lot of those aspects musically, but I kind of leave Peterson to do his own thing, and I really don't coach him much at all, even when we're recording vocals and doing things like that, because he just has his own thing going. And it's not that there's nothing to be done. Nothing really needs to be done. You sort of give him a few takes, 5 or 6 of them at most, and we might do a little bit of a best of with all of that in the end, but he always brings something to the table and something interesting. And I find his lyrics very poignant and kind of very descriptive of what the times are now, and I find that's important in so many ways, because if you don't have a message, then what's the point? And he's actually talking about something that affects everyone, and so I think that that's a big part of why I wanted to join Talleen. That it kind of came about on a whim, sort of a Facebook post about, hey, we needed a drummer for blah blah blah, and then we just ended up playing together, and me producing a few tracks for them, and this was to almost 2 years ago now, and the progress has been amazing. I mean, the songs are coming out better and better, and we're getting more and more attention because of that. But Peterson is a, a big staple in this band, and irreplaceable. Has his own sound going. Reminds me a bit of Darby Crash, and like he's got so many great influences, but nothing that's pinpointed where it's like, oh, he sounds like this. Mm-hmm. It's just, you hear all of these different things, but he's got his own thing all to himself. Yeah.
Like, the reason I asked that, I'm always curious if becoming a parent changes your lyrics, which you're not part of, but that's why I kind of went with that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so then talk about like what's, you released Economics, which is a single that in August, correct? And you just kind of also mentioned that you just kind of finished up some tracks. So where do you go now? What's next for Talleen, and this post pandemic time, where mm-hmm. bands are slowly gonna, so yeah, brag about your band and what's happening and all that stuff.
Right. Well, we have a few other singles that we want to release up until the spring. One that may be ready by the end of the month to release, and one that we specifically want to do a video for because we have a concept that we really like and we think people will get a kick out of. That we'll probably release more in the spring. But we're looking to compile all of these singles that we've been releasing into an EP and release it. We're still discussing, we're shopping around with a few labels. Things are moving slowly, but moving along. And now we're looking at a tour in France for about 2 weeks in May. And so we're still confirming those dates, making sure. And it's a smaller tour, but it'll be Talleen's first, escapade over the pond, and so I think it's important to start forging that path, And we're going to be playing a few shows in December, Ottawa and Toronto. Baby G's, I believe, in Toronto on the 18th, and Ottawa, I forget the venue, but on the 17th, on Friday the 17th, December. And that's it. I mean, after that EP, we'll want to press vinyl. We'll want to wait 2.5 years for it to get pressed, and then hopefully release it as soon as that happens. But we're still writing a lot of new material, and we're trying to work on songs. Alex Speechless has many songs that he's written already. He is the core songwriter to Talleen, and we sort of do all of the arranging together. But he has a big bank of songs that he's been working on pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and a few post-pandemic that we're working on now. And so the band is still hard at work and trying to keep a presence amidst all of this. Not easy to play shows. Things are finally opening back up, which is great. I mean, we played one show with sitting room, a smaller club, and small attendance, and people got a real kick out of it. It's just as enjoyable as a full stacked room, people next to each other. The energy off of that, nobody can compare. But the fact that people were still enjoying it was nice to have. And so we're just trying to keep that connection alive with our fans right now and build a bigger fan base, trying to get people to listen to more Talleen songs.
Right, it's tough, right? Like, what are the restrictions like? You're in Montreal, right?
Yes.
What are they like there for live venue?
Well, I think on the 15th, November 15th, everything will open up back to normal, standing room,
okay.
all of that. And so, I went to a Mary Davidson show a few weeks ago before they left for Europe, or I guess almost a month ago now. And it was the first night that it could be full capacity in a venue, as we were, and we were allowed to stand for certain songs. And so that was also great to see people. It's very dancey music, and so people being able to appreciate it that way and show their love was really nice for the band, I'm sure, and it was nice as an attendee as well.
Well, I hope that all works out. I hope the best for you and your band there. Last question: are there any words of wisdoms you'd like to leave for some dads or future dads out there listening?
Follow your instincts. I think following your instinct is the best thing you can do as a dad, and maybe even just as an individual. Follow your instinct and you will not go wrong.
Okay, love it. Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate your time. And,